Hey everybody, it's Matt Mayoko from NBC Sports Bay Area. Um, Although it may appear as if I'm already in Buffalo, I'm not. Still in the Bay Area. I just took the dog for a walk on a Wednesday morning, getting ready to head down to Santa Clara, where they will have their first practice of the week to start getting ready for the Buffalo Bills. While I was on the dog walk, I had some ideas about the quarterback position and the last time the 49ers played the Buffalo Bills and how it may have influenced a really big decision the 49ers made several months later that ultimately backfired. But first, this video is brought to you by Canyon Club Brewery. It's a brewery with a lot of different beers, a lot of different kinds of styles of beers. So there's something there to meet everybody's taste. Also, I think kombucha and sours and all that stuff. So stop by. Family friendly atmosphere in Moraga, California. Also, a really good menu, good variety of stuff. Tasty bites is what they say. And I would totally agree with that. So check out Canyon Club Brewery. It's definitely one of my spots. I try to go there anytime there's a St. Mary's basketball game for a little pregame action and maybe even a little postgame action. So check it out in Moraga and coming soon to the Livery in Danville. Okay, so back on December 9th, 2020. Here is the headline. I wrote an article, a kind of an opinion piece, an analysis at NBC Sports Bay Area. Here's the headline: 49ers hope to find next Josh Allen after getting diced up by Bills quarterback. Okay, so 2 days earlier, the Buffalo Bills, in a game that was played in that pandemic year, it was played in Arizona. The Bills win that game 34-24. And as I recall, in my mind, it was more like 38-10. That it was they crushed them. I used 38-10 because that was the last game saw the 49ers play in Green Bay. So, anyway, in that game, Josh Allen only rushed for 11 yards and only one kneel down at the end. So, basically 12 yards rushing in that game, and he was sacked one time for 7 yards. But what he was able to do in that game was just kind of run around, avoid the pass rush, and then deliver the ball accurately downfield. He completed 32 of 40 pass attempts for 375 yards and four touchdowns. And it just got me thinking after that game, and I think a lot of people kind of picked up on this too, is that, Jimmy Garoppolo at that point was basically running the play as called, and a lot of times not even doing that to Kyle Shanahan's specifications. But then once a play broke down, he just wasn't able to make necessarily the second reaction play or, the running play and all that. And so I think as the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan looked to take the offense to another level, they looked across the way and saw Josh Allen and, of course, other quarterbacks of that ilk, guys like Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, to name a couple, and just thought, like, that's the way the NFL is going. And here's what Kyle Shanahan had to say when talking about Josh Allen and just that age of quarterbacks. He said, I think some of the challenges over the last, at least in my career, is you get some of these unbelievable athletes who never had to sit in the pocket and really go through that because they could just win games in Pop Warner just running around. Said, and basically he said, like, the tremendous athlete in youth football could just run around and make plays. And then that goes to high school, same thing. College, same thing. But then you had to change when you got to the NFL. But with, whatever, youth football, with the passing leagues, with the private quarterback coaching, with all that stuff, maybe that era had changed. And what Shanahan said was, those quarterbacks who would just run around and make plays. Um, he said then eventually you get to the NFL, and there's times that you got to do that, and it's really tough. But I think there's more and more guys coming out who have have the ability to do both. And when you had that, you've got a chance to do both. And that's why you see that in the league, you're finding more and more of those guys. In other words, a player who can just sit in the pocket, go through his progression, make the play when it's there. Or when something breaks down, either pass protection, whatever the case may be, nobody's open, can run around and make plays. And so that's what clearly Josh Allen brought to the Bills in that game against the 49ers. And the 49ers did not have any answers defensively for Josh Allen. So the reason I bring this up now is obviously the 49ers are playing the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen Sunday in Buffalo. But it also led, I think, maybe indirectly at the time, there was a pretty direct correlation in my mind of what the 49ers did. In the coming months after that game, they made that trade to move up to number 3 overall to pick a quarterback in the 2021 NFL draft. Now, as the story goes, and as I understand it, the 49ers at that point, and everybody kind of figured at that point, Trevor Lawrence was going to be the first overall quarterback selected, followed most likely by the Jets taking Zach Wilson. The first quarterback, as I understand it, that Kyle Shanahan took a look at was Mac Jones. And he thought, well, he's an upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo. We would take him. We, meaning Kyle Shanahan saying the 49ers would take him. But so let's go ahead and make that trade and then see what else is out there as well. And so it led to the 49ers looking at Justin Fields. And for Justin Fields, he was sacked way too many times in college, didn't make the kind of NFL throws or go through the progression or run play action like the 49ers would have wanted a quarterback to do. And then they saw Trey Lance, a guy who I think got good coaching at North Dakota State, who had done some play action where you're turning your back to the defense. There was enough raw skill there and enough potential that the 49ers saw that they could mold him into the kind of quarterback they wanted. So ultimately, he was the guy. They traded up from number 12 to number 3 to take Trey Lance. Obviously, that did not work out. Probably a lot of reasons for that. I thought Trey was going to be a good quarterback, and he still might be, although I think that time is kind of running out, especially when you consider that the Dallas Cowboys had just every motivation to get him on the field and see some success from him, as the 49ers did in a lot of ways. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys really, trading a 4th-round draft pick for him. That was a deal that the 49ers, I think, definitely got the better of, just as obviously the Miami Dolphins got the better of that trade with the 49ers. And so Trey Lance had the injuries. 49ers select Brock Purdy, the last pick of that draft, the 2023 draft, 2022 draft. And he ends up being everything and more they could have ever hoped for, especially for, the latest possible 7th-round draft pick. And then this year, while Brock Purdy has been running a lot more, getting, already far exceeding the number of rushing yards that he had his first season. He leads the team in rushing touchdowns, but maybe he's running too much now because he has a sore right shoulder, which might have occurred on his touchdown run, his 4th of the year, a couple of weeks ago against the Seattle Seahawks. But anyway, here's where the trade for Trey Lance really hurt, because at the quarterback position, it didn't hurt them at all. I know that's difficult to say whenever you take a guy number 3 overall and it doesn't work out, and you trade him a year later for a 4th-round pick, 2 years later, I guess, for a 4th-round pick. But they're not hurting at the quarterback position because they end up getting Brock Purdy. They got him for 3 years on basically a minimum salary. So they're able to do other things with their roster. And that was one of the ideas with the 49ers, is that if you get a rookie, that's part of the reason why they took Trey Lance, decided to take a quarterback in that draft because they knew that they would have a quarterback on a fixed salary for, in the case of a first round draft pick, for maybe even 5 years if you pick up the fifth year option. So, in that sense, they were able to probably re-sign some guys that they might not have done if they had to get a quarterback in another way. Okay, so here's the part that it's very difficult to analyze, how the 49ers would be different had they just stayed at 12 in that draft. I mean, obviously they would have had Jimmy Garoppolo probably longer, unless they went out of free agency and paid for a quarterback. But let's just, all that stuff, let's just kind of gloss over that part of it. The part of it that I know probably hurt the 49ers the most is they passed up an opportunity to get three other first round draft picks, or three picks, first round draft picks at other positions. So let's just say that they wouldn't have taken a quarterback in the 2021 draft, 22 or 23, quarterback with their first pick. Who might they have gotten in that case? And and you look at it, and obviously there are guys that could have made kind of a major impact for this team. And at 12, and I know it doesn't line up this way, but just for conversation points, if the 49ers had stayed at number 12, the number 12 overall pick in the 2021 draft was Micah Parsons going to the Dallas Cowboys. So could you imagine a 49ers defensive line that has Nick Bosa on one side and Micah Parsons on the other? That's a game changer right there. The following year, because the 49ers made it to the NFC Championship game in 21 season and the 22 season, the pick what they would have had if they'd been right there, was number 29 overall, and that went to the New England Patriots after a couple trades, and they got Cole Strange, a guard who has been a starter for the Patriots since his arrival on the scene. And another pick later was George Karlaftis with Kansas City. So, either one of those players certainly would have helped the 49ers. And then a year later, the 49ers, in that spot that they traded away, that was number 29 overall again. And in that draft, the New Orleans Saints took a defensive tackle by the name of Brian Brzee. And so he's been kind of a part-time starter for the Saints, but the players taken right after that, really nothing to write home about. But 5 spots after Brian Brzee went to the Saints, the Detroit Lions took Sam Laporta. And when I look at like the future of the 49ers and how they have to build this thing out or kind of restock, continue to kind of evolve and bring in new players that replace older players, or just increase their backup situation or give themselves more options. A tight end is definitely a spot that they need to find somebody who is, there's only one George Kittle. I guess you could say there's probably a handful, 6, 7, 8 really, really good tight ends in the NFL. There might be more than that, actually. But the 49ers have one of the absolute best in George Kittle, who's showing no signs of slowing down, but there is no heir apparent behind him, and really no great option if George Kittle were to miss a game like he's done a couple times this season, but also just 2 tight end sets. Eric Saubert's more of a blocker. They've kind of pieced it together in the past with Ross Dwelly and Charlie Werner. And so another tight end would be a spot that the 49ers certainly should look for. So in looking back at Josh Allen and that game he had, and the 49ers going with Trey Lance, it brings me now to this year where I know a lot of people are asking questions about, why is Brandon Allen the quarterback when Brock Purdy wasn't out there. And this is just by coincidence, by the way. I didn't do this to make any kind of statement, but I threw on a sweatshirt to take my walk, Kennedy Space Center. That just happens to be where Joshua Dobbs has interned in the past. He's a basically a rocket scientist. So this is no sign of support for Josh, although he seems to be a very nice guy, as does Brandon Allen. But I guess I think that the easiest explanation on why the 49ers decided, while Kyle Shanahan, Brian Griese, and whomever else had a hand in this, why they decided to go with Brandon Allen as the backup quarterback to Brock Purdy to start the season, and thus the guy who would get the start against the Packers, and also the person who will get the start on Sunday against the Buffalo Bills if Brock Purdy is unable to go. And we'll have more on that later in the day as we see what the 49ers do at practice. But I think it's just running the offense, going through the progressions. And the biggest example of that was the quarterback making the right read, showing patience in the offense, and delivering that touchdown pass to George Kittle against the Green Bay Packers. Dobbs appeared to be, more of a whenever things start to get a little bit wonky, when that first read isn't there, he's maybe more apt to run and not stick with the offense. So, that would be the cleanest reason, I guess, or potential reasons why Brandon Allen was anointed the backup quarterback for that game. Joshua Dobbs has obviously better running ability, so he would have gotten more yards with his legs. But with Brandon Allen, more delivering the ball on time, going through the offense, and it's an offense that he's had familiarity with in the past and kind of knows it very well. And when I look at Brandon Allen's game from Sunday against the Packers, if you're going to compile reasons why the 49ers lost that game, I think Brandon Allen is way, way far down the list. His worst play of the game, actually, let's take it. His two worst plays of the game. One, I think his worst play of the game was very early on when he threw a pass over the middle into, I don't know, quadruple coverage, and Quay Walker, the Packers linebacker, had an easy chance to just make the interception, but he dropped it. So that play was just ill-advised throw. I don't know what he saw on that, but obviously it was the wrong thing. Statistically, his worst play of the game was the play that was his interception, and that was a pass that should have been caught to Deebo Samuel. A pretty well thrown pass. It could have gone for some yards, but it went through Deebo Samuel's hands, and it ended up in the hands of Xavier McKinney, who had the interception. Another pass later went through Deebo Samuel's hands as well. So I would not put Sunday's loss against the Packers on Brandon Allen in any way. But, Kyle Shanahan said he played okay, and that's why he would be in line to get another start if the 49ers are not able to get Brock Purdy on the field Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. Okay, so that's a little my take after my walk with my dog, and just kind of having some thoughts about the quarterback position and Josh Allen and the challenge that awaits the 49ers defense on Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. Thank you for watching this video. If you get a chance, please subscribe, turn on your notifications. I always like to see likes and comments at the bottom. And that is it for now.